Good morning, class 10. Today we shall start the chapter Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. All these things you have studied earlier. So I will give the chapter a quick reading, and wherever explanation is required, I will keep doing it. Let us start. I am starting from page number 17. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries. Besieged means surrounded by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their tributes before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders of South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Amphitheatre is a building without a roof. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, that means the white-skinned people. And now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. So it was such a big event, it was such a historic event, and people from different nations belonging to different races, having different skin colors, they had come here, they had gathered here for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On the podium, Mr. de Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. The Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws means because of its policy of apartheid, many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be hosts to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is after all a common victory for justice, for peace and for human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation, political freedom, liberty. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender and other discrimination. Never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. So Nelson Mandela said all these words. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the new Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to the new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact, unmindful means I was not aware of or conscious of I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. He is remembering those days when he was a person to be arrested, not to be saluted, just because of the policy of apartheid. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of white singing Kosi Sikelel I Africa and blacks singing Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever seen. We all know that the dark-skinned South Africans were treated very badly before the, you can say, the reformation which was brought about, and Nelson Mandela is describing all those feelings which he has in his heart. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever. It was replaced forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of the color of their skin. So now the blacks were given equal recognition by the world, and they were not treated the way they were treated when the policy of apartheid was followed. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose sufferings and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That means he is very thankful, he is grateful to all those people who worked hard so that South African people could see this day when the racial discrimination was done away with and the people got equal treatment in the world. The people were free, they were given impartial treatment. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. Had wrought means had done. What their sacrifices had achieved for the nation. They had died fighting. They died in the struggle and they could not see the fruits of their struggle. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. So he is saying, Nelson Mandela is saying that the sufferings which we have suffered, mental and physical, due to the policy of apartheid or racial discrimination, the wounds will remain in our hearts for years to come. We can't forget those bitter memories so easily. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sisulu, the Chief Luthulis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobukwis of our time, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity, that their like many never be known again. So we all have seen that whenever there is a great transformation in the society, whenever something great happens in the society, behind that great change, there is always there always has been seen a group of people whom we can call as revolutionaries. These revolutionaries do not bother what the world is saying for them, what atrocities they might have to face, but they are mainly behind the revolution, and due to them the change is seen in that country or in the whole world. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. You must have studied in geography, children, that South Africa is very famous for its diamonds. So Nelson Mandela says that my country is rich in gems, it is rich in minerals, it has one of the purest diamonds in the world, but more precious are the people because they are true at heart. They are the greatest wealth for him. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. What is the meaning of resilience? The ability to deal with any kind of hardship and recover from its effects. Just now I told you that whenever in any country there is a great reformation, you will see a great change in the society, something great happens, behind that great event is the hard work, is the resilience of great many people. These people may be famous people, these people might be ordinary citizens of that country, and these are those people who keep on fighting with strong courage and determination in their hearts, and they don't bother how much oppression they have to face, how much criticism they have to suffer, physical and mental hardships. They keep on facing all these obstacles. These obstacles are nothing for them because they have a strong aim in their mind that they have to fulfill their purpose for which they are fighting. The purpose can be any, to bring about any social evil, to free the society from any oppressive custom, tradition, etc. So such is the purity of their resolution that they are not moved by any obstacle in their way, and that is why due to these people the purpose is achieved and freedom is obtained, or whatever goal they have in mind, that goal is successfully achieved. I am reading this line once more. I have seen men stand up to attacks. That means I have seen men bearing tortures on their body, bearing tortures on their mind, physical torture and mental torture as well. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking. They are not disheartened. They don't break. That means they are not disheartened. They are not discouraged. They keep on struggling to fulfill their aim. They keep on fighting, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear. If a person does not have fear, it does not mean that he is courageous. He is saying, but the courage is not absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Courage is winning over fear, being triumphant over fear. That means overcoming fear. That is courage. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. This is a very important line, children. A brave man is not he who does not feel afraid. everybody at some point of time in life feels afraid. Maybe the fear is a long term or a short term, but he who overcomes that fear, who wins over that fear, is actually the person who can be called as courageous. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. That means Nelson Mandela says that people know how to hate, they should learn also how to hate, but more naturally they learn how to love, because God has given us this quality that we naturally learn to love one another. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, see the meaning? Pushed to the last point in our ability to bear pain. That means that last tolerance point which a person can have to bear any suffering or pain. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep on going. How beautifully he has expressed his emotions. He is saying that when he was in prison, and he along with his companions in the prison, they reached that point of tolerance which was extremity, which was the extreme maximum that they could tolerate or bear. At that moment, suddenly he saw one of the guards showing some shine of humanity in his behavior. Maybe it was just for a second. He just showed humanity or gentleness in his behavior just for a second, but that 1 second which he saw in that guard was enough for him to reassure that he must go on. He must go on fighting. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Beautiful line. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden. Man can hide his goodness, his good qualities for some time, the reasons may be any, but he cannot extinguish his goodness. That means that goodness will remain in him. He might hide that good quality for some time, but that good quality will still exist there. It will remain in his personality. He will not be able to end it completely. In life, every man has twin obligations. Obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country, in a civil and humane society. Each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations. That means according to his own natural tendencies of behavior and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both those obligations. So, what does this mean? He is saying that man has his duties, his obligation towards his family, friends, relatives, and on the other hand, he has his obligations to his people, that means to his countrymen. And each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations. That means he is giving more preference to his people or to his family, his friends, etc., and according to his abilities. Every person has their own limitations, their own abilities, and accordingly they fulfill their obligations. And Nelson Mandela says that for him, fulfilling that obligation for his countrymen was not easy because of his birth and color. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. Because of this policy of apartheid, any dark-skinned person was, it was not, his survival was not easy in South Africa. His survival as a human being was very challenging. It was very difficult because he was punished and kept in isolation. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped. Inevitably means unavoidably. A man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family. He was isolated from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. Such a life he had to lead. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. So, initially, he is saying that initially he also used to keep his family above. In attempting, I am reading this again. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above the family. That means he did not keep his countrymen in an upper place, in the first place. He kept his family in the first place, in the beginning. But in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. Later on, he was so devoted to serve his countrymen, his people, that he found that he is not able to fulfill his obligations as a son, as a brother, as a father, and a husband. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars, and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe, I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. That means it was just like a dream. It was not reality. When I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. So when he was a boy, when he was a young boy, he did not know that the freedom which he is enjoying till now is just a dream. It is not a reality. When I discovered as a young man, when he grew up, then he realized that his freedom had already been taken away. Then he started longing for that freedom. He wanted to get that freedom back. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night. Transitory freedom means temporary freedom. To stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for basic and honorable freedoms. Yearned means I longed for. I had a strong desire for basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. So gradually he wanted every type of freedom in his life. As he keep on growing in age, he wanted different types of freedom in his life. He wanted to marry, he wanted to have a family, be free to do whatever he wanted to do, stay back outside the home late at night, read whatever he wanted to read, every type of freedom he wanted. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. Gradually he realized that it was not that only he was not free, his brothers and sisters were also not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed. Curtailed means checked or reduced, but the freedom of everyone who worked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. So when he realized that everybody who was like him, who was working like him, all were not free, everybody's freedom was curtailed, then he decided that he is not only going to fight for his freedom but for the freedom of his people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life. I am reading this again. It was this desire for freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. So, such was the transformation in his personality and in his lifestyle. He is saying that when he realized that his people, everybody there wanted freedom, then lots of changes came in him. What were the changes? He changed into a frightened young man into a bold man, a law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. Such were big changes, big transformations which came in his life. I am no more victorious or self sacrificing than the next man. But I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms that I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains of any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. So he is saying that when I saw that my people were not free, my countrymen were not free, he felt that he was not free. If his people were chained, they were kept in chains. Chains here means they were kept in restrictions. They were not given their freedom. Then he felt that he was in chains. He was not free. So he did his level best to fight for the freedom of his people. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated. Oppressor must be liberated means free. Just as surely as the oppressed. The person who is an oppressor, that means he checks the freedom of others, and the people whose freedoms are checked, both should be free. The oppressor should be free and the oppressed also. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Prejudice means a strong dislike without any good reason. So if a person keeps another person as a prisoner, that means he is locked behind the bars of prejudice. That means his mind is not open-minded. He is not an open-minded man. He is narrow-minded. He is not able to think freely. In his thinking, he himself is a slave. He himself is in chains. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom. This is what he is emphasizing here, that if I am free, I must keep other people also free, because if other people are not free, that means I am also mentally not free. I am a narrow-minded person and I cannot call myself a free person. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So the conclusion of the chapter is that both the oppressor and the oppressed should be equally free, mentally also, physically also. Then only we can call them free. If any person is free himself and restricts other person's freedom, he is not letting other human beings lead a free life. a respectable life. That means the person who is calling himself a free person, actually he is not free, because that person is a prisoner of hatred. He has hatred for others in his heart. He is a narrow minded person. He is prejudiced. He cannot think freely, openly. That is why he is also a prisoner. So in order to call other people free, in order to see other people free, one should keep oneself also free. Free from what? Free from hatred, free from prejudice, free from narrow mindedness. So with this strong message to humanity, Nelson Mandela expresses his feelings, and we come to the end of this lesson. Now in my next class, I will be starting some other poem or some chapter that I will let you know a day prior. And we are going to do not all question answers in the copy, children. I will tell you just now which question answers we are going to do in the copy. Page number 24, thinking about the text. There are 5 questions. We are going to do all 5 questions in the copy, and there are some more questions which are given on page number 19, 18 and 19, then 21, and that's all. 21, 18 and 19. This I am giving you as your task, as your homework. You will have to search these answers and just mark in the chapter. You don't have to write them anywhere. Just do these answers and mark them in the chapter. You should know all the answers. In the copy, we are going to do only these answers which are on page number 24, question from 1 to 5. The heading is thinking about the text. Okay, so when the time comes, you will see the PDF and you will do the question answers. Thank you. Have a nice day.